Hi, this is Stu Stover again. What I wanted to get into today with this particular video is the topic of branding. And as those of you who are in marketing, I'm sure are very well aware, branding is huge, enormous in the field of marketing because it's the way we connect to customer in some fundamental way and convince them to buy our products versus other products, probably a price premium for good branding, all sorts of issues that are going to show up and why, from a marketing standpoint, we want to do this. So let's dive in here. What is branding? Branding is the process of framing your product in ways that customers want to buy it. And so, for example, Southwest Airlines for years said, you fly with us, you'll have a good experience. And for the most part, they, in the past, delivered on that because they were different than most of the other airlines. So part of that is framing it so you would want to choose one product versus another. Okay, Ben & Jerry's. Okay, some of you probably like Ben & Jerry's. This is expensive ice cream. But what do you get? The brand is you are going to get a premium ice cream that is worth the price. Oh, okay. As opposed to other brands that you could buy that would be much cheaper, but maybe not as good. So, anyway, so what is branding? Branding is simply a tool that helps us connect to our customer in significant ways. So how do you do branding? Okay, so the big corporations, and I'm going to use Procter & Gamble's as one of my examples here, but P&G does 1 million products. And so Tide and Pampers and just 1 million other things that they do. And so when they take Pampers, there's several other companies out there. Kimberly-Clark does Huggies, and there's a couple other ones out there as competitors. And so what are they trying to do? They're trying to convince you in some fashion to be loyal. Loyalty is one of the gold stars in this whole arena that we're talking about. People are going to be loyal to Pampers or Tide or whatever the product is. So do they work really hard to convince you and I that, yes, that's certainly one of the better diapers or one of the better laundry detergents? Yeah, they do. They have to convince us of that. And they want us to feel a sense of bonding, kinship, something that we want to buy those products because it's what makes sense to us. And so you and I can go into the store, we can buy the store brand, which is cheaper. I got to tell you, for me, let me give you a personal example here. I am loyal to Jif peanut butter. Jif peanut butter tastes enough better to me than the store brand that I'll pay the price. I don't care. It doesn't matter that much to me. I'd say the same thing about Diet Pepsi. I'm kind of loyal to Diet Pepsi. I prefer it to Diet Coke, but I absolutely prefer it to the generics of those kinds of products. And so the idea here is you do it by convincing people two ways. One is just the advertising and the bombardment of us hearing it over and over going, well, that's probably the product I should buy and use. But then you've also got the issue is it actually better than potential competitors? And so there's a couple different issues that show up here. We do it because big bucks are at stake. Big bucks. And so it's really important. So I'm going to blast through this stuff very quickly, guys. And so you're going to have more opportunities to discuss this in class in a variety of different ways. But one of the ways that I like to frame branding is there's the gimmicky stuff. Okay, what does gimmicky stuff mean? Gimmicky basically means that the company has passed the responsibility for advertising and branding off to an ad agency or some other group, as opposed to it springing from within in terms of the kinds of commitments we have to these products. So gimmicky means that it looks good, it sounds good, but it doesn't match up against the reality when we buy that product, experience that product, or whatever. So let me give you an example of that. Some of the traditional airlines will say, fly with us, you're going to have a great experience. We love our customers. Whatever it is they say in their advertising, it looks good, it's glitzy, it's fabulous stuff. Crashed in reality. You go to the airport, you're treated like cattle, you're hassled because of the size of your luggage, you're charged an extra fee for this or for that or for whatever. You get on the plane, the seat won't even lean back even a little bit, and they might throw a bag of pretzels at you on the plane. It's like, what? Why are you treating me like cattle? And the answer is, well, that's kind of the way the industry has gone. For what it's worth, you've got companies in Europe, plane companies, that are allowed now to have bicycle seats instead of regular seats. Why would you do that? Because you can jam more people on the plane by doing that. And that's more of the low-cost airlines that are doing that kind of stuff. Is that far away from America? I doubt it. And what we've seen is smaller seats as America keeps getting bigger and bigger. So airlines tend to do gimmicky kinds of stuff where the reality of the brand and the experience we have is substantial. Historically, we've had the same thing with cell phones and the cell phone companies, same thing with the TV providers in the old days. And a variety of other industries tend to focus more on the gimmicky side. Let me give you another example that's not branding, but this notion of gimmicky stuff. So back in the 1980s, 90s, both, most organizations were told they had to focus on their core mission, their core values, so they had a mission, a value statement, and they had all those things that were supposed to help define who we are as employees, how we connect to the company, but also gives a sense of what we're committed to as a company. Well, some of this is quality movement that showed up in the 80s with Dr. Deming and a whole bunch of other gurus that showed up in that era. But what happened, General Motors and Ford, both of them kicked the process coming up with the core mission and the values and all of this stuff. They kicked it off to a consulting firm to write. So it looked good, it was professional, it had all the right words and the right stuff, but it meant zero. So I asked one of the guys when I was teaching at one of those plants one time, I says, what's going on with this issue? And he reached into his billfold, pulled out the card, he read the card to me. This is our mission, these are our core values, these are, so how deep was that? It was inconsequential. It was just a gimmick to comply with some crazy rule that they seemed to think they had to comply with. And so gimmicky shows up in a variety of arenas, not just in branding, but branding is vulnerable to this. So we have lots of companies that will play sort of a gimmicky game to try and gain superficial loyalty and hope that it lasts long enough that they can make enough it's kind of crazy how this plays out. Or there's an integrity way to go. And the integrity way to go is, you look at, say, a Ben & Jerry's, or I'll give you some other examples in a minute, but Ben & Jerry's said, we're going to do a premium ice cream. We're not going to cut corners. We're going to deliver value. And it's going to be expensive, but we're going to deliver value. Because they thought at the time that there were some consumers in America that were willing to pay a premium price for ice cream. Okay, back in that era, it was an emphasis, not completely obviously, but an emphasis on 5-gallon tubs, meaning quantity matters, not quality. Was that true in beer at the same time? You bet. You had the Sam Adams and then all the microbrewers that showed up that wanted to provide a higher quality beer versus the big corporations that were saying, you will only be a true American if you drink our beer. What? Really? Okay. And so integrity means that it tends to spring from within. It's a passion. It's a commitment we have with our products to our customers. And so customers are the central piece in integrity branding. Central piece. I can't emphasize that enough because far too many companies see the customer as simply some idiot that buys our products, or in some other crazy fashion they are dismissive of customer. And so lots of issues that will show up there. And so proper branding is commitment to customer. Proper branding is a promise. You buy our products. And it should be stated someplace. You buy our products, and here's what we will deliver to you. You know, Starbucks in the early days was really, really good at that. Great at that. I don't know about today. You know, it's hard to tell what's going on today with Starbucks. But there's other companies that have done a remarkable job. And is this something that big companies can sort of be dismissive of or play the game or whatever? Well, yeah, they're big enough they probably don't need to spend as much time. But if you're a small business, if you're starting up, how important is this? This is absolutely critical. If you're a small business just starting up and you get somebody that has a bad experience, is that hard to overcome? It might be for a variety of reasons. So let me do one other quick thing here with this. Get rid of some of this. And the book that I like is called Brand Asset Management. And so the guy who's the author of this frames this as there are 3 levels that we can connect to customer. Okay, so the bottom level of this process is we connect on features, attributes, okay, so what does that mean? So let's look at John Deere as at least a historically good example of this stuff. Okay, so a feature would be the color. A feature would be it has an automatic transmission. Or a feature is that, you know, whatever the features are in this particular product. And is pretty much everybody in the industry going to have all that stuff? Well, yeah, I mean, it's not going to be green, but it's going to be some other color. So are you going to win loyalty based on attributes? These are the easy things to deliver for the customer. And they, frankly, in most cases, are sort of no-brainers. So if you said, yes, my lawnmower cuts the grass well. What lawnmower doesn't? You know, and the answer is, I suppose, an old one, or, you know, other problems with that, or underpowered maybe, but the answer is pretty much everybody's going to have that, and they're going to function. They're going to have to function. So the lower you go, the easier it is to deliver on this promise, even though it's not a particularly powerful promise. The second level is called benefits. So benefits are things like the function, the emotional benefits, and basically you're saying that this is going to be a good product. It will serve you well for a long time. It will deliver the kind of things that you expect it to deliver. If you're going to pay a premium price for this thing, you're going to get a premium product. Okay, all that's fair. Nothing wrong with that. This is harder to deliver than this level down here, but still, it should be fairly straightforward that we're going to be able to deliver benefits to the customer. And if you can't figure out what your benefits are, you're kind of in trouble as a company. But the third level is the one that is most important to me. Third level is about values and beliefs. I don't know. I wonder a little bit at the language that they use to describe this. But let's go back to John Deere. Now, John Deere is, in my opinion, in a bit of trouble right now. They've trying to simply do the standard corporate strategy of lower their costs, keep their prices high. Well, if you lower your costs, what makes you different? Your product. Hi, this is Stu Stover again. What I wanted to get into today with this particular video is the topic of branding. And as those of you who are in marketing, I'm sure are very well aware, branding is huge, enormous in the field of marketing to people at a significant level. Okay, what does that mean? So, my brother-in-law, his father, okay, I know, we're bouncing around the family here a little bit. His father was a farmer. His father had red tractors. So those were the McCormick's or, whatever the red ones were. Doesn't matter. He was out in the fields one spring, and he was going along preparing the field for planting, whatever. He hit a sinkhole. All of a sudden, he's sitting at ground level. The tractor's just sunk. How do you get out? There's no good ways to get out of that. And he goes, Well, why is he so upset? Not because he's in a sinkhole. He's upset because he has to go down to the neighbor who has a green one, John Deere, to pull him out. And so there's a sense of pride, a sense of ownership at this level. Somehow, if you got a green one, you've arrived. If you got a green one, you can sort of have that sense of superiority. I don't mean necessarily a bad way, over people who don't have the best. And that was the assumption, is that you got the best. And you paid a premium price to get the best. So there's tons of psychological advantages that you get by connecting to customers at this level. And there's a ton of examples of that. Think about Air Jordan sneakers, Nikes, paying a premium price for shoes that are essentially inconsequentially different than other tennis shoes. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there were some substantial differences, but we're paying a premium price for what? The sense that I've got the best shoes. The sense that my competitors on the court don't have. I'll be able to jump higher. Whatever. Same thing with Cadillac. Why do you buy a Cadillac as opposed to something else? Well, it gives you a sense of something. If you can get that sense of something, it's an interesting question. What is that something? If you can get that, you can charge a premium price. You can increase your profits. You can create a system that works. So, easy, a little harder, really hard to do, and really hard to maintain this over time. But branding should be about trying to focus as best we can up in this top box. And so those of you who are thinking about starting your own businesses, I don't care if it's a food truck or a new business that does, pick a service that you might be able to provide for somebody. The idea is if you can connect up here, then you're able to charge a premium price. The reality is, guys, you're not going to be successful if you're trying to compete against Walmart, and Walmart brand products, you just can't make enough money to be successful by doing that as a small business. And so, at least in most cases, exceptions are pretty minimal. But the more we can hang out up here, the better off we are. So my message to you guys is pretty simple. I don't care if you're going in to work in a big insurance company, or if you're going to start your own business, or you're going, wherever you're going to go in your career. Brand is essential. Why does Progressive spend so much time on their advertising? Because they're creating a brand saying, you come to us and we're going to provide low cost. I've never quite figured that one out, but anyway, we're going to provide low cost to people at a significant level. Okay.